I think before we canonize St. Kamala here on the high holy day of January 6th.
Donald Trump is inheriting one of the best economies that a president has inherited in a very long period of time. At the stock market, you're looking at the stock market right now.
Sorry, I'm not even finished writing it down yet. This is the first time.
What's up, everyone, and welcome back to the Black Coffee Podcast. Today, we're diving deep into the ever-present controversy of January 6, 2025. You know, the day that some in the media have tried to turn into the end of democracy, or at least use as a cudgel to beat conservatives over the head with. But today we're going to talk about the truth.
Of the United States are as follows. Donald J. Trump of the state of Florida has received 312 votes. Kamala D. Harris
on this Harris business, I think before we canonize St. Kamala here on the high holy day of January 6th, let's remember the Electoral Count Reform Act of 2022 makes it perfectly clear that the vice president has nothing but purely ministerial duties on this day. She didn't actually certify the results of the election. That's done by the voters and the people of the state.
It was clear as day 4 years ago as well, right. but because of the
that's the thing. I mean, nobody's trying to canonize her. The same thing was true.
Oh, they're not. I mean, she put out a video trying to canonize herself.
She was actually just saying it's unremarkable. That's true.
That's the opposite of canonizing.
I want to actually congratulate the Democrats today. This is the first election since 1980.
He's doing this again.
This is the first election since 1988 that a Republican won, and Democrats did not try to overturn the results on the floor of the Congress.
Let's start with the media circus surrounding January 6th. They're still at it, aren't they? They are trying to paint this picture of complete chaos, blaming Donald Trump for everything, as if the people who showed up on that day were just mindless robots following orders. They say Trump sent protesters to cause chaos and make the U.S. look terrible. But let's be real, people were there because they felt like their voices weren't being heard. The media conveniently ignores the fact that there was a huge portion of the country that felt like the election was not legitimate. Let's not forget the media's effort to portray Kamala Harris as doing something extraordinary when she certified the election results. It's literally the vice president's job. As Scott Jennings rightly points out, the Electoral Count Reform Act of 2020 makes it clear that the vice president's role is purely ministerial.
You started seeing people backtrack that and losing their moral center. You had Condoleezza Rice, I believe, on this very show saying, we need to move on from January 6th. I say no. You don't move on because January 6th was an atrocity. It was one of the worst moments in American history. And when you think about the worst moments in American history, like World War II, things that happened, like the Holocaust, chattel slavery, we need to never forget because past becomes prologue if you forget any race.
The media also uses extreme comparisons to push their narrative. We saw some folks on The View actually compare January 6th to the Holocaust, slavery, and World War II. Seriously? World War II, where millions died fighting for freedom, is the same as people protesting on the steps of the Capitol? That's not just an insult to World War II vets, but a blatant attempt to demonize anyone who might question the official narrative.
In light of all the rhetoric and things we're going to hear people say today, is that ultimately it was the American people that got to decide ultimately how we feel collectively as a country about January the 6th. And already today, we have heard some people in other venues say extraordinarily unhinged and vile things, comparing January 6th to the Holocaust, to slavery, to World War II. I think we need to arrange our feelings and control ourselves accordingly here and not go off the deep end. It was not a good day. Political violence cannot be condoned, but we can also be measured in how we view it in light of the rest of American and world history.
I'm just going to say, look, I get it, and I agree that in the long run, I think that the days of, January 6 fights are probably going to be over. We did a great thing with the Electoral Count Act reform, but we have to be very careful. We can't put Democrats, and I was against them doing it when they did it, obviously, against Democrats opposing the election We can't put that on the same level what happened on January 6th. It's one thing for a few people to say, we're going to vote against certification of this election. Once it would have hit critical mass in the Democrats, I'm pretty sure if it would have hit critical mass, the leadership would have come out and said, no, we can't do this. Instead, Republican leadership like Kevin McCarthy shocked us all on January 1st on a phone call when he said he as well is going to object to the certification of this election. And when he did that, that's when I predicted that day there'll be violence on the 6th because you're convincing half of the country an election was stolen. And by the way, Scott, if I believed an election was stolen, I would have been on the steps of the Capitol that day because we're a country that believes we should have a voice heard. And that's the danger of terrible leadership and convincing people.
And it's interesting how quickly some, like Lisa Rice, want to move on. But let's be clear, we should move on, but also put this in perspective and stop exaggerating what happened.
Let's just say
David,
all those people weren't violent protesters.
I'm going to let you make your point, but I want to pull that video back up that we were just showing. Because I want you to make your point, because I think a lot of people share your perspective.
Yeah, those people should go to jail, right?
What we were just showing with the barricades and the officers. Those were not officers just letting them.
No, go to the Supreme Court side.
Yeah, I know the video you're talking about.
No, these people should go to jail. The people on the Supreme Court side, however,
they were trespassing.
They were
trespassing.
Okay, listen, there's a difference between trespassing and physical violence.
I know, but don't you think shouldn't they make an example out of these people though? Like this was wrong. They shouldn't be allowed to trespass.
Everybody should not be treated equally. They were violent criminals, right? They shouldn't be treated equally. There are people. These people who are beating the police should go to jail. There's no excuse for it, right? There's no excuse for it. Some of the people
do you think then those people should get pardons? Should those people
that beat the police? No, shouldn't
the
be
people
pardoned.
that Donald Trump is promising to pardon?
He didn't promise to pardon everybody. He said he's going to look at it case-by-case basis. Let's just be factual. Those are the words, right? And to be factual, the only person that died on January 6th, there was one person that died. Ashley Babbitt was the only person who was dead.
She was there because Donald Trump had
his life. No, wait a minute. If you're
on
arguing
January
because
6th,
he didn't die on the 6th, then he passed away on the 7th.
We're talking about who died on January 6th.
That is beyond splitting hairs.
It's not splitting hairs.
Come on.
It's factual.
Why else was she there? She wouldn't have been there that day if Donald Trump didn't spread conspiracy theories about an election that he knew was not stolen. And he told those people to go to the Capitol. And so she was there as a result of him telling her to be there. She would not have died if it.
Now, let's talk about those who were actually there. Were there some people who acted violently? Sure, there always are at protests, no matter what side it's on. But the media paints everyone who was there as a violent criminal, and that's just not true. Some were trespassing and some were violent. Some were simply there to express their concerns. We have to look at these cases individually and not label everyone who was there as evil or deserving of punishment. And while we're talking about punishment, consider this. The media is silent about the people that Donald Trump is promising to look at case by case, to give pardons to. The media likes to bring up Ashley Babbitt as this tragic martyr who died because of Trump. They tried to make it sound like she wouldn't have been there if not for him. It was one loss of life. It was a tragic loss. But to try and frame it as some kind of massive tragedy is just a tactic to manipulate the audience. They're also missing the point of the protest, which has to do with the frustration people felt about the integrity of the election. Some people believe the election was stolen, and that is why they were on the steps of the Capitol. We're a country that is supposed to have a voice, right? We've got to be more measured about how we view January 6th, especially considering the larger context of American and world history. There's a double standard at play, especially when you consider that this is the first election since 1988 that Democrats haven't challenged the results of a Republican victory. We all know that in the past, both parties have questioned results, but this time it's different because Trump is involved, so all baits are off with the media. The American people decided in 2020 to choose Donald Trump for president, despite everything that happened in the past. They chose to look at the big picture and make the right decision.
Donald Trump is inheriting one of the best economies that a president has inherited in a very long period of time. If you look at the fact that something like net migration at the border is lower than it was even before Donald Trump took office. If you want to look at the stock market, you're looking at the stock market right now.
Sorry, I'm not even finished writing it down yet. This is the first time.
The border needs to be secured further, and this number can be accurate.
But this is the first time.
Yeah, I think it'll be remembered but I don't think it's going to be remembered singularly. I think it's going to be remembered in the context of the last 8 years, 4 years of Trump, 4 years of Biden. I mean, the fact is it happened. It was a terrible day. Violence, political violence should never be condoned. And then we lived through 4 years of Biden's presidency, and the American people went scrambling back to Donald Trump. They chose to analyze 2 presidencies, which included one day and a whole bunch of other policy decisions, and they went back to Trump. The other thing about this day and about this election that I think is noteworthy and actually positive is this. It's not been since 1988 that Democrats have not challenged a Republican win on the floor of the House when trying to count the votes. I've never had an election in my adult professional career in which both sides basically accepted it without too much grumbling. Obviously, 00 and 04, Democrats didn't accept Bush. There were Republicans who didn't accept Obama. We know Democrats still think Russia stole the election in 2016. We know what happened in 2020. This time around, it seems to me that most people have basically accepted the results of the election. Also, the Electoral Reform Count Act passed in 2022, clarifying that the vice president only has ministerial duty. So that's going to go off without a hitch today.
At the end of the day, the January 6th narrative is just another example of the media twisting the truth and demonizing anyone who doesn't agree with them. It is clear that Trump is inheriting one of the best economies a president has inherited in a long time. Let's be honest, the media and Democrats are afraid of the fact that he is still the people's choice, and that is what is driving much of this rhetoric. That's all the time we have for today. Let me know your thoughts on January 6th in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more content. Peace.